Hey crafters, Big D, I'm back. Sorry. I have subscribers and I haven't posted in a few months, and I'm sorry about that. That's not fair to you guys. I let some personal things get to me. I let some personal things happen. I lost some video footage. Life got pretty crazy. I struggle a bit. I struggle with some mental problems. I've got some mental health issues. Um, but I'm good now. A lot of good things, a lot of good people in my life helping me out. And one of the things I'm doing is I'm getting myself into more routines, something I need. So, hopefully everything goes right. We're going to see a video every 2 weeks. I'm going to try and post on Sundays. That's my big video editing day. So I can do all my editing through the day and then post at the end of the day. And I can spend the next 2 weeks crafting and getting my next project together. So every 2 weeks on Sundays, we should be seeing videos. So I got your city board. The city board I've been telling you about, my zombie apocalypse city board. It's finally done. It's ready to go. I'm just recording this intro because of all the video pieces I lost, and you'll hear about that in the video. I lost the original intro I taped for it. So here's a new one. I'm recording it right now, and I'm going to be posting it probably in like less than an hour. So thank you guys for sticking with me, and I hope to put up some new content quickly for you guys. I've got a bunch of ideas. I got a bunch of projects I'm working on, and I'm going to add some content. I'm actually working on some mini painting. My oldest, for Christmas, went and got me a new set of actually some good paints. Not the craft stuff I use on my stuff, on the stuff I make, but actual mini quality paints. As a recommendation from the Miniac, this is the set of paints I got. I used to be a painter years ago, and I used to use Citadel, and I got out of it for years and just kind of went with slapping things together. That being said, back to the topic at hand. City board. Let's take a look. Hey crafters, and we're back at the table, and we're starting with our city board. So the basic instruction is very simple. If you've lived in a Midwestern town, or I'm basing this from what I know here in Wisconsin, a lot of city streets, even in downtown areas, will have your sidewalk, and then you'll have a bit of green space, grass or trees or whatnot, and then the curb, and then out in the street. So we're going to be recreating that here with these. Now we're going to start with our base. Our base piece is 1 inch thick foam insulation board. Not the 1/4 inch that we used for making tiles, but the actual 1 inch. It's thick stuff. And the reason we're doing this is we want it to have a little bit of firmness to it. Originally, I tried making these on wood once, and well, the problem is with the glue and the different applications, without it having like a framework, the flat board ended up just warping. Did a couple tests and found that I could make it fit if I put framework, but then that made it heavy, and I wanted these boards to be light and portable and easily replaceable if need be. So this, you get one 4-foot by 8-foot 1 inch thick board, and you can cut 8 pieces out of it. So you can make 2 full sets of boards or a few other projects. I've got a few others coming, so we're going to do a couple different boards as the year progresses. This is the first one. So for this, we cut it into 2-foot squares, 24 inches by 24 inches. Try to keep your cuts as level and as neat as possible, and then you're going to want to take like a high grit sandpaper. Again, I use my sanding sponge, and just kind of rub over your edges to make everything smooth out. We're going to clad everything at the end, and so that won't be too bad, but you want to make it nice and clean, at least make it as neat as you can. After you've cut this, you're going to get yourself some foam board. Now, we're not getting the cheap stuff. we're gonna get the good stuff. It's a couple of bucks at like a craft store or whatnot. This isn't the peel away. This is the 1/4 inch thick with heavier cardboard, and we're gonna cut this to a 19-inch square. And the reason we're cutting it 19 inches is because this is gonna make the basis for our sidewalk area. So we're going to take it, we're going to cut it 19 inches. That's going to give us 5 inches of street around the whole side. And then it'll let us cut this. We're going to cut for some curb and green space and then walkway. So we'll come back and show you how we're going to cut that and trim that. So for right now, just focus on cutting 4 of these, 24 by 24, and 4 of these, 19 by 19. So we're going to start off with measuring and generating our lines. So we're going to have a 1/4 inch curb line. So we need to measure that 2 spots on 2 of our sides. And then we're going to have 1 inch of our green space, and then 1.5 inches of sidewalk. So you need to have those 3 markers. So now we have a rough idea where our sidewalks are going to be, where our green space is going to be, and where the curb is going to be. Now, this point, we're going to come in close, and we're going to curve this. You want a nice gentle curve. Keep in mind, this this is going to get cut. So this, we don't have to worry about it. So this is going to be a corner. This is going to be a corner walkway. And we're going to have our bow swells and our walkways. So this is going to have a walkway every few inches. So walkways and everything marked. So now we're going to begin cutting. So we go get X-Acto and we'll come back. I've got these cuts in place. We got to remember, we got to put the lines, we got the cuts in for the individual blocks. Okay, so we've got our foam cut, we've got our scores put in, and we've got the foam exposed on what are going to be our green areas. The next step is we're just going to take a ballpoint pen and we're going to run it through our cracks just to create a nice scoring effect so that everything is nice and defined. Okay, crafters, so we lost a little bit of footage here, so I'm going to kind of explain what the last 3 steps were. After we finished cutting out all of our foam board and texturing and we ran all the lines here, we took like a ruler or something heavy duty and kind of pushed it into the foam to create some separation between the foam and the top of the cardstock to even give it a little bit more depth. That way, when we laid a thin layer of the Mod Podge or the black in there and sprinkle a little bit of grit in there, we actually have a nice space to do our green space in. Alright, then we took it and we took our heavy duty PVA. We ran a thick bead all the way around all four sides of the board, of the foam board, and then a liberal application all over the middle of the board. Put it in place, square it up at the back corner square, make sure it fits nice and tightly in this back corner, and then put a flat board on top, put some weights on top of it, and weigh it down and let it glue. So let it sit for at least 24 hours to make sure it really sets in nice. Now we've got it, and it looks great. It's in place, it's not moving. Then I was talking about the cladding earlier. This is the cladding I'm talking about. I have found when I'm making objects out of foam that are going to have edges or corners that get run into, even if you do a good layer of paint on them and put some heavy lacquer on them, sometimes the foam can just bump into stuff and it wrecks the piece or just puts a really bad ding in it. What I have found that has worked wonderfully when I want to edge a piece is I get 1.5 inch painter's tape. And I'm just taking the painter's tape and I'm laying it down. I'm actually laying 2 layers so it's split and it's wrapping all the way around, but it lays nice and flat. I mean, this stuff lays really nice and flat. Now I'm going to run this painter's tape all the way around the board so it covers the pink edge all the way around, and here it's going to cover this side here and actually wrap up onto the concrete area a little bit, but we're going to cover all the way around like a cladding. And then when we're going to give our foam a coat of the Black Magic Mod Podge, we're going to actually prop this thing up and cover the painter's tape as well. Since it's a paper-based tape, the Mod Podge will sink into it, soak into it, and grip it to the piece so it becomes like a hard lacquered edge. It's really great. I've done a couple of projects where I've tested this out. It's great on corners. It's great in concealing 2 seams that you can't get to really seal up or sand nicely. I've used 1/2 inch for something this thick. Since I'm using 1 inch thick foam, I'm using 1.5 inch tape and 2 layers, one covering the upper half, one covering the lower half. If you're concerned about it peeling back, I've never had an issue with it, but again, tape's your friend, or I should say glue's your friend. You can give a layer of tacky glue, or if you're really concerned about it, you put a coat of your Mod Podge on, and while it's still wet, you put the tape on, and then give it another coat over the top. The whole thing should lock in place. This will form a hard barrier and protect your edge all the way around. Protect it from dings and bangs, and it's wonderful. So we're going to run the tape around. We're going to get tape all the way around, and then we're going to Mod Podge our whole thing. And then once that dries, we are going to prime this with a dark gray primer, and then we're going to come back to do our paint technique. So the next time we see this is going to be dark gray, primed and ready to go. And we're going to talk about how we're going to do the stippling to recreate the concrete and the asphalt of the road. One thing, I know a lot of people that do asphalt, they use like a very fine grit sandpaper. We're not doing that. I'm actually not going to use much grit at all, but we're going to use paint and sponging to create an asphalt looking surface. So if you're the kind of gamer or the kind of wargamer that wants to do the classic asphalt with sandpaper, you go right ahead and you just cover that area with the sandpaper, and you can still apply my paint techniques over the top. So we're going to come back to a piece of foam concrete. Before I do the paint, I just wanted to give a quick shot of our tape cladding going all the way around. When you put it over here, you want to again rerun that line to add your texture back there. And then when you got your cladding on, you want to make sure you run a nice firm thing down there so the whole thing is nice and solid. Tape's on there nice and clean. You want to look before you get folds like that, and you want to just kind of smooth them out. But there you go. So that's with the tape cladding. Again, good old-fashioned blue painter's tape. And now we're going to do Mod Podge and priming. Okay, crafters, so I'm kind of flooding this area of light so you can see the contrast and the paint here. But it's actually, if I wasn't flooding it, it wouldn't be as extreme as it looks right now. So the base coat is a very dark charcoal gray. It's almost pure black, but it's got just a little tiny bit of gray to it. All right, so we've taken that and we went and got this paint, and this is a really great paint. It's called Apple Barrel Pavement. It's a very dark bluish slate gray. It looks like fresh blacktop. So that's what we're doing. We take a sponge brush and we do a liberal but light coating, just gently dabbing through on all the curbs so that we get paint most of the way into these edges. Now then we're going to blend it. So then what we do to blend it, went and got a big sponge. You can get these at like Dollar Tree, or it's like just a big foam for washing your car. Kind of bend it around and throw a rubber band around or a hand band around it so you get a nice rounded edge. And then you're making it wet. You're putting paint on it from your palette, and then you're doing a light, actually I should say a heavy tapping. And that's going to be blending it. Now because we want this to be mostly this black, I'm doing it pretty heavily. When we do lighter coats, subsequent coats on top of the gray, you'll see I do it less and less and less so that we don't get as much of the color underneath covered up. So we're just going to go through, you just do all this and do them all at the same time. That way you're blending, coming at the same time back and forth. So we're going to get these all blended down and get this all covered up and get this on there. And then we're going to come back with our next shade of gray. Okay, so the pavement's dry. Again, it's not perfect. The only reason we're doing the sponging is to hide brush marks and to make it look a little bit more mottled and a little bit more spattered. And if you ever look at concrete, concrete isn't a solid static color. Asphalt is, but asphalt fades pretty quickly. So what we're going to do is we've got our gray out there now. So now we've taken a palette, we've loaded up with a 50-50 mix of a dark gray and that pavement, and we're putting some on the sponge, scraping a bit off, so we're not doing a completely loaded brush. But as you can see, we're just patting it on there. And we don't want to leave too many splotches, and we don't want to leave too many, rounded areas. We want to kind of blend it, but at the same time, we don't need perfect coverage. So if we have some splotches, that's okay. Now the harsh light makes it look a lot more contrasted than really it is. Some of this is already dried because I started the technique before I had the tape going. So we're going to go through, and you want to do your boards next to each other so that you make your colors kind of blend. Okay, so now we've got our two-tone gray on the upper area, and we've got our matte pavement gray on the street there. So what we're taking is I'm taking another piece of sponge, just a smaller piece. I'm using a clip to kind of make sure it's nice and rounded because I don't want any sharp edges. I'm taking just a little bit of a palette, putting some on there, taking a lot of it off, and then just gently dabbing Alright crafters, we're back. So check it out. We've got our concrete looking gray, looking very concretey, looks good. Stippling effects work well. Places where you overdo it, you just go back with a lighter color, or I should say a darker color, and tap it a few times, and you end up with a really nice stippled effect across the whole thing. So we're almost done with the concrete here, we're almost done with the road here. So we got 2 steps left for the stonework and the concrete. I did one other step here that I forgot to document, but that's okay because I'm going to do a similar step now. In between the medium gray and the light gray, I took a good old rattle can of cheap brown paint and I just kind of dusted the whole model, all over the model, just dusting it. So you got your can, 12, 24 inches away, and you're just kind of letting it little bit rain down on it. And that just adds a nice little dirty brownish effect to the whole thing. So we're going to do the same thing now, but we're going to do it with white. This is the final layer of concrete coloring and the second to last for the road. So again, we're just going to do a light dusting. We're not going to do it heavy. You're not going to spray it directly on it. You're just going to spray it over like a foot and a half away and just kind of let it rain a little bit down on it. Use cheap paint because unfortunately doing it this way will eat up your paint nozzle. So the way I do it eats up the paint nozzle and it just wastes most of a can. So get the 99-cent can of white paint and do it. And again, you're not doing this heavy. You're just kind of dusting over the top of the model just to let some white kind of rain down on your model. I'm going to get yelled at in a little bit because I'm doing this in the house, but it's very wet because it's been raining out here and can't really do this outside right now. So I got windows open and a fan on and praying the cats don't sneak out. But again, we're only using a little bit of this paint, and as soon as I notice it, I'll get yelled at. Okay, crafters. So, as you can see, the white dusting has really turned out sharp. Our concrete's really looking like concrete. And we just need our road to look a little bit more asphalty. Lighten it up some. I decided I wanted to be a little darker. So we're going to go back in with the same technique I've been doing this whole time. We've got a sponge, we've got just very little paint on, and we're just gently touching it and gently re-speckling some black. So we're going to pave the rest of this. I'm going to do all 4 boards. And then when that's dry, we're going to come back and we're going to do the green spaces, these black squares here. We're going to fill those in with some brown, do some dry brushing on them, make them look like dirt. Okay, so flocking. I lost a little bit of video here. I was going to do the stripes on the road in a specific way, and that way didn't work. It ended up breaking the road. I had to repaint one of them. So masking tape, not a good idea. So I decided not to do the masking tape version. And while I was doing that, when getting rid of that footage, because it tore everything up, unwittingly, I accidentally deleted all the footage I had of me doing the flocking. Flocking's not a big deal. It's your typical thing. We painted it like dirt. We give it a dry brush of a lighter color. We put on some glue. We put on our different layers of flock. Fine foam, coarse foam, and I put on some flowery colored foam to make it look like there's weeds and whatnot. So pretty simple. That being said, after we do that, we're going to be putting the roads on. Now, since we're not going to be painting the roads on, I had to come up with a method to make them that would look better. So, what you're going to do is you're going to get some 65-pound cardstock from any place you want to go, white cardstock. I go to Office Depot, Office Max, because I have access there to a lot of things there. So you get some white cardstock and cut it into 1/4-inch strips. Then you're going to get what they have there, a yellow. It's very similar to a safety yellow. It's called solar yellow. And you're going to cut that also into 1/4-inch strips. The difference is the white you're going to cut down so they're a little over 5 inches. And then you're going to also cut some strips that are 1 inch in length. And the solar yellow you're going to leave at its full length. Get some Mod Podge, and we're going to come back and show how I put these on. Okay, so for this part of the project, since the paint wasn't working, what we're going to need is a palette that we can easily put Mod Podge on. Two strips of 65-pound cardstock cut just a touch over 5 inches, just in case they're not long enough. One piece of solar yellow cardstock, 1/4 inch thick. Cut the full length, so it's 17 inches. We'll trim off the end. And then 5 pieces, 1 inch long, of the 65-pound cardstock. Also 1/4 inch thick. So, since the paint and tape method wasn't working, I decided to do this so it's got a slight raise to it, kind of like the real street and the stuff they apply. So, how are we going to do this? The other thing we're going to need is a 2-inch block scrap foam. So we have a perfect 2-inch square. So, we're going to take our first piece and we're just going to give a nice coat of Mod Podge. And we're going to line it up so it is with this line here coming off the sidewalk. And it is exactly with that line. Take a little bit of Mod Podge after it's done with the foam brush. And give it a brushing down. Nice thing about it with this matte Mod Podge, it's going to dry clear. If we use a foam brush, it won't have any texture to it. So when we just give the whole thing a nice seal, it'll pretty much become invisible. And we'll just have this nice piece there. Now that's where our first part of 2-inch block comes through. Put the 2-inch block there. So it's right there. So our walkway will be exactly 2 inches wide. Again, we take our strip of cardstock and we lay it down directly to the curb and right against the block. And voila, we have the other side of our walkway. Again, once it's down, take a liberal amount of the Mod Podge. Make sure it's straight. And give it a coat to basically lacquer it down to our paint. You don't need to press hard with the brush. Just gently give it a cover. And boom, we got the walkway. Now, next step. Take our 2-inch foam block, put it against the curb, put it against the walkway. We take our first 1-inch square and we're going to put it against the foam so that it matches up with the back corner here. So it's back corner there. Against the foam. So it's 2 inches from the curb. And the back line of it is exactly 2 inches from our walkway. Okay. Now we're going to take a straight edge and line it up we're going to take a straight edge, we're going to line it up with our dash. Foam brick. It's 2 inches. So we want 2-inch space in between our dashes. Now if you measured everything the way I laid it out, by doing this, you're gonna fit 5 dashes on your roadway. Alright, 5 dashes on the roadway. And just give them a little tap of Mod Podge. lacquer them down real nice right to your roadway, and they got a nice dashed line. Mod Podge will fade in color. Then the last thing we're going to do is we're going to take that strip of yellow. You can do the same thing. We're going to lay our brick down to right here in the middle. So let's see, we're going to lay the brick right down in the middle. So it's 2 inches over. We're going to use the brick as a straight edge. So we take our long strip of the safety yellow or solar yellow. Give it a liberal coat of Mod Podge. Down. So it starts at the walkway and it'll trail off the board. And after this is all dry, I'm just going to take a razor and trim off anything that comes over. You're just going to take a little bit of Mod Podge, take a nice coat of it again. And then once you get it all tacked down, you get a nice light brush over the top. You just let it dry. And your board will be complete. So, I'm going to do the other 4 boards, and we're going to come back and take a look at our finished project. Here we're going to have a nice sweeping shot. Here you can see the chapel we just made a couple episodes back. I've got some scale vehicles there and a few other buildings I've made. You can see the zombies on the far left and our characters here on the right side. I moved so I can get a good cross look at this. You can use this for wargaming. If you have a city situation, you can use this for role-playing like I'm doing with my zombie apocalypse game. But this is all what it's about, epicing your game. Enjoy, crafters, and we'll see you next time.